Welcome to the Sound Mind Strategy Podcast with your host, Evan
and Anina Blankenship.
This podcast is aimed to be an in-depth discussion between husband and wife power couple where we take on challenging topics in the mental health and wellness arena.
By trade and training, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified professional coactive coach, USA Cycling National Champion, and I love to push my limits both physically and mentally.
As for me, I am currently in a master's program for sport and performance psychology, where I'm also on track to become a certified mental performance consultant. I've also been coaching athletes for the last 5 years, helping them reach their truest potential.
We're both very passionate about athletic performance, mental skills training, spirituality, and we love to take a holistic approach to helping people find harmony in their mind, body, and spirit.
We believe that there's greatness inside of everyone. Our mission and the mission of this podcast is to help you unlock and operate within yours. Hello, everybody. Welcome back or welcome to the Sound Mind Strategies podcast. This is our podcast. This is episode number 8. Happy Father's Day to everybody. We're recording this on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Dad, back in Decatur, and Anina's dad, Decatur.
Yes. Happy Father's Day.
So how was your day? How was your weekend? How is everything?
It's been good. It's been pretty busy. It's been a pretty busy weekend, just trying to get some things organized around the house and put some new pictures up. Just kind of tidying things up a little bit. So it's felt like it's been really productive. Sometimes it just feels good to like finally hang that picture that's been sitting like against the wall forever or whatever. So that was nice. I enjoyed doing that.
Good. Restful. Get some good rest.
Yeah, I have slept a lot. I mean, Friday I was in bed at like 7:38.
Oh, that's so.
Yeah,
I'm a little jealous.
I know, it was nice. I was totally rejuvenated for Saturday, and I was like, "This is amazing." And had a really fun time. We took Cooper to the dog house in St. Louis to meet his litter mate.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That was really fun.
So he's 9 months now. So they were separated. We adopted Cooper right at like 8 weeks, and his sister was adopted same time. Within a day or two. So they haven't seen each other since then. It was just so fun. Of course, we found each other through Instagram and dog photos in St. Louis and stuff. So it was really fun to be able to let them connect. I'm almost convinced that they remembered each other.
I think they did. They totally did.
They were like right from the get-go, they started playing instantly. And
they were like tag teaming like other dogs. It's like they knew like how to...
Oh, yeah. They were definitely two peas in a pod.
They were. It was precious.
Really fun. If you are in the St. Louis area and you do have a dog and want to go explore some areas, I highly recommend checking out the dog house. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Soulard. It was fun.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
Hang out and dogs run wild and they have a pool they splash around in.
His little sister peed in the pool. We were cracking up.
That was funny.
She's that kid, right?
Yeah, well, you don't ever want your dog or kid to be that one. But
Right. But what about you?
They both kind of were that dog.
They were. Oh, I know. Just nobody poop in the pool.
No, it was great. Weekend was good. We've had still getting a lot of rain, and it just seems to be like when you don't want it to rain, like when you're trying to get outside and do some stuff. So, but it was good. I got some rides in today. I missed my long ride I was kind of hoping to do, but that was okay. Still got to relax, which was good. My body kind of just said, just
needed
take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting down to crunch time for school. Finals are due on Wednesday. So it's good. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm really excited to, keep progressing in the program. It's a really good program. If anyone's at all interested in sports psychology I'd love to talk about it and recommend programs. University of Western States has been great. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you've done really well there.
So the topic for this evening is self-talk.
Yes.
We've got a lot of requests about this. This is something that Anina and I have some experience, not a ton of experience, but we both needed to bring it into our own life and our own personal practice. So it's good. Like, I'm really excited to talk about this. Do you want to kind of give us a
too.
little bit of kind of background on self-talk and maybe what your understanding is and everything of it?
Yeah, so really like just thinking about self-talk and, how it can be negative. You can have negative self-talk or positive self-talk and the different ways that it can influence, not only like your athletic performance, but your just day-to-day performance, in general. And so, I always think about this, like you don't have to use any effort to think wrong thoughts, but we have to use a lot of effort to think good thoughts. Like it's a constant battle for some. And I will say for myself, it has been a battle before because it's, that, the ants, they call it the automatic negative thoughts, having to check those. And I think for me, once I realized that, I do have the ability to choose my thoughts and think on purpose and refute the wrong areas, that was like a game changer for me. Because I think, we all have these zillions of thoughts that come into our head every single day. And, we can decide to grab onto that thought or let it go, so we're in constant choice of deciding what we do with that thought. Yeah. And so for me, it's like having to, and sometimes it gets overwhelming because it's like, I am tired of dealing with this thought, but just trying to find different ways to replace it, or sometimes just ignoring it or writing it down. The simple act of writing it down and like crossing it out. Or I've even had some folks who write on a piece of toilet paper and flush it because it's like, I'm done with this.
I think that you touched on something really good there. Like a couple things, really. One, that we're in a constant stream of thought. I mean, you're alive, your brain works. That's just the way it is.
Right.
But there's some power in that. Is like, one, you have the choice to grab on and give life to any thought that you want. But then the thoughts you don't, I don't even want to say negative, just the thoughts you want or don't want. If there's a thought that you don't want, you do have the power to let it go, replace it, put in something that you do want. So you don't have to like, one, condemn yourself or feel bad, negative that, oh, why did I have that? Just like,
look at it with curiosity.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious.
Why'd that come in? Or
Right.
Who cares? And just put in what you want.
Yeah.
Just like, don't even give it life at all.
Yeah. Don't beat yourself up. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the person that you have the most interactions with, the most conversation with on more than any other person on the face of the planet is yourself.
Yourself.
I mean,
right.
you're constantly in
Everywhere
communication.
you go, there you are.
Constant communication with yourself. So,
yeah.
And when you have a certain thought enough times, and when it's repeated often enough, that becomes your belief system in you as an athlete, you as a professional, as a spouse or parent or anything.
Right, whatever role.
You'll build a belief system based on the thoughts that you have around that.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of thinking about like, are you feeding that monster? Or I've heard it said, before, are you feeding the monster or feeding the athlete, for athletics? And it's just...
Yeah, so replace athlete with whatever avenue that you want. But yeah, are you feeding the monster or, the positive role that you want to have?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, even as we're talking about this, it is making me think about just that crucial piece of just like, I don't know, like acknowledging it, but not like you said, not beating yourself up about it, has been a huge piece for me. Cause I think I used to really beat myself up. Like, why am I thinking this thought? Like, this is so dumb. But when I started looking at like behind the scenes, like, I'm curious, why am I thinking this? Kind of what's going on? And it really helped me break it down a little bit more instead of being so crude.
You took the judgment off of it.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
I think that's a really important part. But then also another key thing is when you're saying like, why this, why that? And you keep replaying that thought, like, what are you spending the most amount of time doing? You're still thinking on that thought.
Yes.
So you're in essence like building that loop, you're building that pattern to be thinking that way and to be in a negative mindset about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it makes me think about how like our thoughts become our words and then become our actions, just that power that it can really have when we're in that state.
So just real quick, I kind of want to touch on some things on how to differentiate like between a positive and a negative thought. Is it logical, rational, productive? That can go either way. If it is positive, then if it is logical and productive, rather, then that's a positive thought. If it's based in irrational and unproductive, ways, then that's a negative thought.
Yeah.
Does it focus on the present, or is it kind of rooted in the past, or, attending to the future events, like really beating yourself up over past events, or like fear and worry and
for all
the future events,
state,
like
right?
What could go wrong? What's going to go wrong? Does it help or hinder your performance?
Yeah.
In any avenue, if it's athletics or business or whatever.
Yeah, and it made me think even too, as you were like saying, like what's going to go wrong, like automatically, like in my body, I feel like tense, a lot of anxiousness when I think about that.
Huge.
So just, I think about how that plays out for the athlete and just plays out for just whatever scope of practice you're in, how that can really intensify things,
Yeah,
for you.
mean, and what some tension is necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the tension you're describing, when is that ever productive? Like when you really kind of feel your shoulders creep up towards your ears, and like you just feel all that tension. You kind of shoulders round out. Your breathing becomes a little bit more labored.
Yes.
Hard to focus.
Yeah, it's hard to focus.
Mentally,
You get blurry even. Like,
blurred vision.
I have had that,
When is that ever productive and helpful in any situation? It's not.
What if you're running from like a lion or tiger or bear? I guess it wouldn't be.
Even then, why is it? How would that be productive?
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't mean. I mean, I guess only thing would be like the adrenaline rush. I guess you would get, but not like the tense.
But you're not being optimal. I mean, it's not enhancing your performance.
Right.
Why is that tension good? Wouldn't you want tension in your legs to run and focus to see where you want to go and to be able to think clearly on how to actually evade that, if that is, I know that's a funny hypothetical, but in all reality, that kind of stuff plays into sport perfectly. Like if we're running or performing, like how is that at all helpful? So that's really, really kind of cool, which I did want to jump into something that is like the perfect segue into it is the ABCs of self-talk.
Oh yeah. This is good.
There's an activating event. You say getting chased by a lion or
or bears. Remember in Asheville, I thought we're going to get chased by a bear.
Just me being on the sports psychology side, I always like to use sport as an example. I use cycling a lot, so I think maybe just use something else like soccer. I know I played very, very briefly and poorly, but so you're the goalkeeper, right? Or hockey. That's
true.
You're the goalkeeper, and they're firing shots on you. So that's the activating event. You can't change it. It is going to happen. They're taking shots on you. So you have one of two ways to respond. You can respond positively or negatively to it. So then that goes into your belief system. I practiced really hard. I know how this guy, handles and shoots.
Really like talking yourself up, building yourself up.
I'm confident and I know I can defend against the goal.
Yes.
Versus, man, I don't want to blow this. I think everyone's counting on me. I don't want to be, that guy or man, the other goalie's, I don't want them to think he's better than me or she's better than me. This is such a great opportunity and I don't want to blow it. So like acknowledging the level of the event, but then coming at it from like like really negative kind of to way. And then that leads into C's, the consequence. Right. And then you have your emotional and behavioral consequences from that. So do you see it as stress and anxiety, which would be the negative version, or challenge and excitement? So like you're up for the challenge and you're excited to bring all your practice and all your skill, to the forefront, show it off. Show off all the skill that I have.
Right.
And then the behavioral consequences are they disruptive behaviors, such as like the tension that we were talking about. You get flustered, your concentration's poor, and then you actually like just move a little slower. Your reaction times are slower. versus the helpful and constructive behaviors where you are confident and you're light on your feet. You got quick hands, quick feet, so that's kind of like the ABCs of like how self-talk builds those belief systems to actually affect our consequences, our actions.
Yeah. And it makes me think too of that. Like it's something that I know from personal like attempts, it's got to be practiced because, if you're not, because like we said earlier, like the negative thoughts come really easy typically for a lot of us, but having to really think the positive is hard. So almost having to do those skills and drills types of things, I call them, for yourself, like kind of that whole visualization, like we've talked in other episodes of visualizing yourself there and imagining like, what you're saying to yourself in that situation. So you don't automatically go to the negative thought.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's really important. A lot of these mental skills techniques are in training, like they actually become more of a stressor if you try to just one-time dose them into an event.
Right.
Like you're not trained in it. You don't really know what you're doing. It's not founded in anything. You might be actually doing the right thing, but without that, just like
continual stream of
and just the practice and the buildup of it, it really is not going to be effective, and it's probably going to hinder you more.
Yeah,
because you're going to rely on it, think you just took like a magic pill or a special potion kind of thing, and it doesn't work like that. Like it needs to be built up. It is practice, like sport training,
and the negative thoughts didn't just come over there overnight either. Right. So it's like being realistic. Like I've built these in my mind since, I've been 10 years old. And so to have to like reverse it is going to take some time to get that record off a repeat, so to speak. Mm-hmm. What do you think about like the influences that people around you have on you?
That's, they have a really big influence. Like, I mean, whether you're in a team sport, individual sport, you're giving talks, like there's all kinds of ways that people influence your performance. Like you're in that pre-game or pre-speech, whatever your thing is. If you're in that like pre-moment, you kind of have to, for me, I found that I really need isolation because I kind of have found that I'm always on the verge of like being almost too amped up. Like, so I know for me to be at an optimal level, I need to really protect myself from letting others influence and bring my like mental arousal level too high and push me into anxiety or nervousness or something.
Right.
So I think other people play on that big time. Like if they're just all amped and jazzed and like super pumped to race or to do anything, like that might be too much for me. That energy might be too much right now.
Right. Yeah, amps you a little too much.
Yeah. And then so to me that's like I love the energy normally. And I love their positivity. But if I'm already just a little on the nervous side, if this is a big event or I'm just coming back from something or whatever, like maybe that's too much for me right now.
Yeah. Have to be aware of that. Yeah, that makes me think about how I used to, like, I didn't realize this until like later, but I know like I am a social being and I know that about myself. I like being around people, but sometimes before, like when I was racing more, just being around when people would talk about all the crashes and this and that, and I kind of unleash all their just kind of negative fears and why they feel better, like unloading that. And it's in no way to like, it's not, they're not intentionally trying to like, bring you down. But I noticed that I would start to take on some of those fears that they would talk about. And then I would be like, oh my gosh, like freaking out. So I'm like you, where I have to like get alone, me by myself, even before I'm going to like go do a talk. Like, I don't want to be like chit chatting with people. Like I want to get in the zone, kind of just compose myself before I get on the platform to do a talk. So it's just, I know like once I learned that about myself, I was like, wow, this is like a total game changer because I'm not letting what they're saying or whatever influence me either way.
I mean, like they feel better, right? They've completely unloaded all their stress, but not knowingly or necessarily aware or purposefully onto you.
Yeah.
And you've soaked it all up. And now,
totally.
So where one athlete, you might have been in your optimal level and really in a narrow band of optimal, right? So like so easily we can go too high, too low. The optimal band is kind of narrow in my opinion. And they just dumped all this stuff on you and just took you right out of it. And now you're nervous, anxious, and either one have to do a quick self-correct, which that's where the skills and training comes in.
Right.
Or you're just going to have to like, oh crap, what do I do now? Now I'm nervous and anxious and afraid. And
I know I was reading in something where she talked about like just having the folks be like a duck, like letting it roll off of them, and they'd have a visual, like they'd have like a little rubber ducky like in their race bag or like on them somewhere. So they like on their keychain to remind them, oh yeah, I need to let this just roll off, because sometimes we will be in situations where we can't control the environment. And maybe we're stuck with somebody, and that's just like kind of what's happening is that they're unloading and all that's, taking place, and maybe you can't get away for whatever reason. And just to kind of be able to center yourself back so you don't get off track.
Yeah. Just to kind of keep this going in the self-talk vein. Let's start with negative self-talk, and then I'd like to end it with like the positive stuff and kind of what the how do we, one, if we are a negative self-talker, how do we become positive?
Yeah.
So let's maybe talk on some ideas of like how to identify negative self-talk, maybe what that looks like, some of the different ways that manifests.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You want to start with something? You got something in mind?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about something like, and I've told myself this time and time again, like, don't be nervous. And what I've learned is that, your brain hears in response to nervous first and don't be second. Same with like, don't drop the ball. Your brain tells you, what it means to drop the ball. In a flash, you see yourself like dropping the ball. So it kind of like throws you off. And so almost being able to like reframe that of like, catch the ball, or instead of that, don't be nervous, reframing it by saying, I'm confident and I'm ready.
So just avoid the don't
Right.
do X, don't be this. Just like
be confident.
Yeah, just
be you.
say what you want instead of like, this is what to avoid, this is what to not do. Like, skip that step and just go straight to this is what I want. This is what I see myself doing.
Right.
This is how I'm optimal. This is how I perform at my best. And
isn't that crazy how like one word, like don't, like, don't
powerful.
be, how it can really make have an impact on you.
Absolutely.
I know.
Huge.
Yeah.
Some of the things that like, one of the big ones that for me that stuck out was like fear of failure. So that was one. Just, kind of worried that how I'd be viewed. So
what was like your negative like self-talk about that?
Just kind of like always worried that like I'm not gonna win the race, or I'm not gonna get up the hill in the fastest time, or I'm not gonna be able to support the team in the role that I was given. If I do this at this time, be here, and then just not be able to make it.
So all these things you aren't going to do it well.
Can't do this, or they're counting on me, and
don't blow it.
We would have won the race or the championship if you would have been there. That weighs on you. So that kind of ties in a lot to the other thing of like social approval. So to me, fear of failure and social approval were very tightly knit for me. My fear of failure came with my social approval. Like, well, they're not going to like me if I can't perform. And then I'm thinking negative. And that social approval could come in a lot with like, close friends or, even family members, spouse, husband, wife,
right.
All that. Like, you feel like you have to perform a certain way to be approved.
That approval
like,
addiction.
I have to win. I have to nail this speech, or I have to bring home this job, or I got to do X, like for them to love me, to care about me, to impress them. That's really weighty.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stress that people put on
you can
themselves.
get addicted to that too, right? I know I have before of like approval of like, I want this person over here to approve and this person over here to approve. And before you know it, you're like running yourself ragged because you have this like almost.
Yeah. And you're not doing anything for you anymore.
Right. Where did you get lost in this whole thing? Yeah.
Yeah. I think another one that was really big was, I think a lot of people kind of fall into this is some of the different irrational beliefs. And I think a big one that sticks out to me is like perfectionism. You know, they got to be perfect. They have no wiggle room to allow anything else to happen.
Yeah. And that leads to a lot of burnout, I think, too, when you're constantly having to perform at this high perfectionist level, you know?
Yeah. Like to say, I have to be competent at every single aspect, at every single area. I have to like not be able to figure it out, but I have to be perfect. I have to like be the best at all of it.
Right. And so much pressure.
Yeah. And I think that's not our roles by any means. Like that's why there's different positions on teams. That's why there's different positions on, you know, in business teams and management teams and within the family structure, we all have different positions and roles. Like you're not supposed to be the best at all of it. We rely on each other.
Exactly.
We're social people. We're social networking people. You know, like you're supposed to rely on people for help and
exactly
fill a role. You know, you do something really well and they do something really well. And
yeah, and it all just kind of goes hand in hand. It makes that other person feel really good to be able to have helped, you know, in their role that they were supposed to carry out. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think too, almost like sometimes allowing yourself like to think about like, you know, what are maybe a handful of positive thoughts you can choose to replace the negative ones. You know, maybe really getting deliberate about writing down those negative ones, and then
that's really helpful. Before we kind of skip forward to the positive stuff, I do want to touch on one because I know this is a big one that you have worked on a lot with yourself and with a lot of your clients. Is this whole idea of the inner critic? Obviously that's a negative thought pattern. It just already sounds negative. Can you kind of give us a little idea on what the inner critic is, what it's all about, kind of the whole gist of that?
Yeah. So a lot of times I explain it to, you know, the people I coach. It's like the inner critic is there to serve a purpose, to keep you safe, basically. You know, it's the voice that always kind of, it's like that familiar voice that's always there saying, you know, you can't do this. This isn't going to work. But the main function of it is to keep you safe, because anytime you try to do something new or different, you know, your mind, your body wants to revolt because it's taking a lot of energy. This is something different. What if we fail? All these what ifs kind of thing. And so what's really helped me for the inner critic is to like acknowledge it. So like talk to it, like, hey, inner critic, or what, you know, some people even have names for the inner critics, you know, and you can get that deep into it where it's like, hey, you know, I'm driving this car, you can get in the back seat, like this is how we're going to roll today. Or sending it on vacation sometimes.
I don't want to, I do kind of want to interject really quick because that plays in a ton to like physiological stuff too. Like the part what you're saying is like, it's by design to try to keep you safe.
Yes.
The same thing, like if you're running a new distance, running a new speed, pace, pushing a new heart rate, like, and you get those feelings of like slow down, stop, you know, this is hard, or hand in ice water to pull it out, you know, to pull hand out of the ice water at a new time, like, those are all ideas of like to keep you safe, right?
Right.
But once you like go from 2 miles to 3 miles, then, or you run that little bit faster pace, then now I have a new measurement of safe.
Exactly.
I have a new threshold of safety. And it's the exact same thing. Instead of saying I'm stupid or untalented or I'm weak or whatever, it's like there's danger beyond this. So there's the
Right.
mental aspect of it, and it's exactly the same as the physiological side of like there's danger beyond this.
That's so true.
But what you're saying on the mental side of it is there's danger because you're not capable. You're not smart enough. You're not talented
Yeah,
enough.
we've never done this before. This is really scary
Yeah.
kind of thing. Right. And I think sometimes reminding your brain that actually, you know what? We have done this before. Like, so for sometimes at work, it's like I have to do like these cold calls to people. And at first it was kind of like nerve wracking. And then I'm like, actually, Nina, this isn't new. You used to do this in telemarketing when you had a job in high school. Like, so you're used to doing this. So I had to remind my brain, like, no, we've done this before, actually. So let's just roll with it. And then, like, as soon as I was able to do that, it was just like, I just made it so much easier because my brain was like, oh, yeah, we have done this. Let's just keep doing it. So it's almost like sometimes just having to even like remind it, which seems so weird to me at first, but I'm like, it really did work. When I did that, so it's just, I don't know, just kind of getting creative and how to address it. And for me, it has been kind of looking at it from a curious mindset, like, thanks for keeping me safe, but it's time for me to move on. I want to grow in this area. And it's kind of, thinking about it as like putting on those comfortable pairs of jeans, that you always know how they're going to feel when you put them on, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the same way, like it wants to stay in that comfort zone because it doesn't want to fail.
I think one of the ways for me how the inner critic always showed up was to like if I'm not crushing my workouts, like if I'm not hitting all my numbers or doing the right time that I'm supposed to ride or whatever, like the inner critic voice would always come in and just say, well, really good riders never miss a workout. Really good riders are always pushing above their prescribe, they're always testing the upper limits, they're never tired. They never miss a day. They never have to just like take the extra rest day. That's not true. That like, if you really pull back and think, what do the best riders do?
Right.
They listen to their body more.
Totally.
It's the not good riders that just like punish themselves when they need rest. Like we're humans and we go through, ebbs and flows of things, and like sometimes you need an extra rest day. I don't care if you're the best or worst athlete, like it's just what our bodies need.
That's so true.
But that's how the inner critic would always play on me, to just say, ride when you're hurt, ride when you're tired, push through, get on yourself, yell at yourself when, think poorly of yourself when you don't hit those interval numbers, You
can have some of that today, even in your writing of like, with your race that you did and stuff. It just
I mean, I was supposed to do a long day. I kind of was forced inside because of the weather, but I just didn't feel great. I just didn't not sick, not anything, just like wasn't feeling hot. So I kind of just called it early, and it was fine. And you kind of had that look on your face, like when I was telling you I was cutting it early. You're like, "Are you okay?" Like, no, I'm good. Like totally. Like, I'll take the rest. It's cool. Like my body just said, we're good. We're done.
But would you say that's like a shift for you in your thinking though? Like beforehand, would it have been
I would have suffered. I would have done the prescribed and just suffered through and paid for it over the next couple of days, where I'll be fresh and sharp over the next couple of days now, just different way to look at it. And that's just experience, but also a shift in my belief of myself as an athlete and self-talk, putting all this to practice. And this is where it gets me to be okay with that. And like, now I'm actually way better served.
Right.
Like, I would have loved to have been able to crush the workout today, but my body asked for rest. So for me to answer that and then know that I'm going to crush next week, I feel better. I feel good about that.
Yeah. I could tell because you were just kind of like, yeah, it's good. I need the rest. And I was like, awesome. Okay.
Well, because if I would have suffered through, then I would have had a really bad mental day today. Because I would have maybe checked a box, but it wouldn't have been good.
Right.
Wouldn't have been quality. And then the next few days, I would have suffered for it because I would have still needed that rest, and now more. Right.
Yeah.
So then that makes that negative self loop even even more ingrained.
It does.
Right?
That's true. Yeah. You make me think about when you said that quality, it's like quality versus quantity, and sometimes we get so used to, I do anyways, check the box, even though, I kind of half did everything. It's like,
yeah. At that point, it's like, I would rather only get one box checked a day.
Right.
But know that it was done.
Right.
Thoroughly, purposefully, carefully. I did not say perfect, and because it's not a perfection thing, but like,
right.
I did my best on that instead of just saying, well, I checked a lot of boxes today. They all got like some, asterisks by them, like didn't get this, or this is missing that, like blah, blah, blah. But I would much rather have one done to the best of my ability. And if I can get more than one, that's great, but to me, quality is more important than quantity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting there on that.
Well, it's a
process.
Trust me, I'm definitely not there. Like, haven't arrived, but it's just, I've learned that area.
Right.
That in my cycling, I love quantity too. I do love to put in long miles and long hours, but quality has to come first. If I can't do the hours with quality, then I need to cut back.
Yeah.
So
that's so true. That's a good point.
Sometimes you can do both, but quality wins.
Yes. I agree. Hands down. It totally does. So what would you say, like moving on to kind of like what would be some more like positive self-talk ideas or how to...
Yeah, some of the positive thought pattern stuff.
Yeah, like what kind of comes to mind for you?
I think one of the biggest ones, one of the most important things for me is to be optimistic instead of pessimistic. Just that positive mental attitude. If I can just...
PMA.
Oh, it's huge. I know that kind of gets tossed around and overused a lot, but man, use it. Like...
Yeah, it's been really impactful for you.
If you can bring that positive mental attitude into everything you do, like it totally changes the landscape of your day. Like stress and anxiety is now challenge and excitement. We saw that in the ABCs. Like that's so important. One, you're more energized instead of drained to do the exact same thing that you still have the same stuff on your bucket list, but now I'm energized and excited and accepting the challenge. Like I can do that. I could do that. Like, oh, I'm dreading that,
Yeah, totally different. It's like a game changer on that.
Have you had some issues with being like optimistic versus pessimistic? Like when people like tell me about you, like it's all one of the best first things that they say is, she's so happy. She's so bubbly. She's so, happy all the time.
Yeah.
But I see you at it like in a much more consistent, like I agree with that, but I do see the other
what
side.
You really think. No.
Well, no, I see the other side of it sometimes too,
Yeah. I do think it is something I have to really work at a lot. Like, I haven't always been like this, like happy and happy-go-lucky and bubbly, but it's something that I've really had to put a lot of practice into. And I don't get it right all the time. Like some days I just have this kind of like, I don't know, just kind of this ho-hum attitude. And it's hard for me to get out of that like funk. Sometimes I feel stuck. But I think like sometimes what's helped me too is to kind of, imagine like that cookie jar moments, like remember those things that you have done really well in and the things that like
those big breakthrough moments.
Yeah, those big breakthrough moments. And I think it's important to like write them down and sometimes just pulling them out. Or like we have that jar where we write down, which we need to get back on that, writing down the positive things that have happened in that jar. And then we can pull them out later and like take a look at them because sometimes you just need that little bump. Because maybe you can't call that friend or call that family member or have your spouse or whoever around that you need to figure out something to like lift yourself back up. So that kind of helps me sometimes. Also like just putting on like praise and worship music, like that will help me get out of a funk. Like today with the rain, I was just, in the morning when it was raining, I was just like, oh, I didn't feel like doing anything. I just put on some good music that I really like. And it just like kind of gave me that little pep in my step. And it's like, dang, music can really like really
Well, we were looking
help.
like we were excited to go ride, right? And then like,
Right.
so we get up and our whole days change because the weather's not cooperating. So we had to adjust, right? So we both kind of like had a way to still be positive about the day and still move forward.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things that I really like is focus on the present instead of
True.
like worrying so much about past events or future events. Like just deal with the here and now, right now, you know?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's very true. And I think too, sometimes just, like I mentioned this earlier, but like writing them down, like writing down what are my negative thoughts or my fears or whatever's going on. And then writing next to it, like, what I want to believe, what would be the most impactful and beneficial and like nourishing to myself to believe, and kind of writing that out, and then kind of figuring out for myself, like, where's this gap in here? Like, how can I build, like we've talked like before, like the ladder thoughts, how can I build a thought? Like maybe I'm not feeling totally confident. Like that's the goal I want to get to at the top of the ladder, so to speak. And my thought down here is like, I'm not enough. Well, what would be, maybe going from I'm not enough to I'm confident can feel like a stretch. So almost thinking about like, what would that next rung on that ladder say about me then? Like I'm trying new things. I'm, getting better at this or whatever X, Y, and Z is, just to kind of help build that thought. Like that's helped me too.
That's
sometimes.
so powerful because like, there's a few key elements of confidence, and self-talk is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But also like what you're mentioning is like mapping, like blueprinting.
Right.
So that's what that is, that ladder that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like your brain has a really hard time associating like from where you are now to that, like that big future goal, like you're saying.
It does. For me anyways.
So that blueprint or that map to get there, it can handle that. It can just say, okay, I see where we're headed, but
right.
what am I going to right now? What's next for me? So to have that clear map, that blueprint of like, I'm not the most confident, I'm not the most talented in this, skilled in this, but that's my goal, to be the most or be the best or be whatever.
Yeah.
Like draw that map out, be very thoughtful and clear about it, remain realistic and objective about it. And that's another way to stay positive, is to be realistic. And then your brain can actually say, okay, I can believe that.
I can believe that.
I can believe for that in the future.
Right.
If I follow this pattern, it makes sense.
Yes, totally.
But for me to jump from where I am now to
the complete
X
opposite
goal,
yeah.
if I'm at A and I'm saying Z goal, I got to take the steps. I need to,
it's such a process.
It's believable to see the roadmap.
It is. I agree. And that's a great way to explain like the roadmap, the blueprint. That makes a lot of sense. I knew something else that I've done in my own coaching with the clients I work with, and then with my coach has done it with me too, is like some of that visualization again of like, and there's this thing we kind of take folks through. It's like this inner leader. So like finding your inner leader. And so for me, my inner leader is like this bright, shining light that drowns out the darkness. And so sometimes I have to call upon that like inner leader to like help me in those harder times, and it can be like a spiritual aspect too. Yeah. For me, like it is the Lord, and it's like his light shining through me to drown out like the darkness that's trying to like evade, kind of, or like attack my mind. And then sometimes it's like you have these little crew members. Like I was telling you, Evan, the other day with my coach, I found a new crew member, which we called like scissor woman.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's like she kind of cuts out those that doubt, that
like
lack
those
of
sticky
confidence.
webs. Yeah.
Yeah, because I described it like I'm like
being in a web,
being in a spider web. And my coach is like, well, what do you need to help get you out of that? And I'm like, scissors. And she's like, okay, here's some scissors. You're cutting away. And like, what are you cutting away? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So it's kind of like I got the power. Like I'm cutting away self-doubt. I'm cutting away this and that. And so then it was like, okay, there's your crew member. Like sometimes you need to call upon your crew member. And I mean, there's a lot more to it. Like I'm just giving like a brief kind of like I don't know, spiel on it, but it is pretty cool when you actually get to go through that process and find out like who all these people you can call upon.
Isn't that fun? Like you're coming up with
people,
all this stuff on your own. She's just kind of like, I mean, there's very purposeful in what she's doing, but it's almost like she's just asking you some very pointed, open-ended questions, and like all the answers and all the stuff is within you. She's just kind of guiding and bumper posting a little bit, and it's really neat. Like I really do like how the overlap between sports psychology and the life coaching practices that you were studied in. Like I always just feel so good about it because they're just rooted in positivity. Like I've never seen so much positivity and so many positive people together. Like when you get these two fields just kind of like talking, or you meet someone in that field, like they're just like such a positive people. Like, and it's really taken me from, I kind of was pessimistic. I kind of grew up that way, just like always doubting things and always like, people said some great things like, I don't know about that, like, and it's really changed my thinking of myself, others. And, it's been great for me to like, just have this whole shift on how I view my environment.
Yes.
And myself.
I know. It's so huge. It's so exciting because it's just like, I can keep learning and evolving and I don't have to be stuck in that old pattern. Like growth is possible for me. Like
absolutely.
Yeah. It's so encouraging.
A couple more things I want to hit on.
Yeah.
In the positive thought patterns, that I think are just some key bullet points, that really help is one, to focus on the process and not perfection or the end product. Mm-hmm. That is another thing that just kind of, all this stuff really, if you kind of look at it, it really just kind of ties back. So that's staying in the moment, being realistic, being objective, it's just being optimistic. So all those kind of like flow together. If we can just focus on the process and just be here and now, know that every day is not going to be perfect, but every day is a little bit better than last day.
Yeah.
Like that is really, really powerful for me. Focus on the things that you can control. Like we're all surrounded by so many things that just are out of our control and tend to pull on our attention. But like you said, we don't have to give it that. Like we can give our attention to what we want to. So if we give our attention and concentrate on those things that are within our control, you feel a lot better about the uncontrollables. Like you just know you're prepared, for those. So that I think that's really neat. And then another cool one, like just to separate your performance in any endeavor from your self-worth. I think this is just fundamental. Like your self-worth is not grounded in any one performance. I don't care if you won a championship or you sucked it up big time and you let the team down and whatever,
it doesn't define you.
It does not define you or your self-worth. Like you are still valuable no matter what. And I think that is one thing that I had to teach myself. I watched you go through academia, through athletics, a lot of different areas as an athlete, as a soldier. For me, like my self-worth was not grounded in how I performed. Now I always strive to perform at my best. I fail and miss the mark often, but that's okay. I hit it often, I think, in my own performances, and I feel, but that's okay. Like
you're learning from that failure.
Way better athletes than me. They're way better psychologists and whatever, but I am who I am, and every day I want to be better than me yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's huge. Kind of like letting go of that comparison. Like, I'm just going to keep working on myself and not compare what this person or that person's doing. Like there's so much relief, I think, when you can.
Because that's the flip side. The comparison is the negative pattern to that. That's right. That's the negative version of it, is that comparison. Like, well, they're better. They're more valuable to society because they're a better athlete, or they give a better talk, or they have more clients than I do, or whatever. Like
I know
silly.
it is silly, and you make me think about something I learned when I went through the coaching program of really thinking about like taking the time to really soak in those moments when I have accomplished something that I feel like is great. Because I know for me, I'm always in this hustle, or at least in the past, of like, okay, yep, that was great. Hurry up, move to the next thing. Yep, let's move to the next thing. And so when I've actually taken the time to like sit and be with myself and be like, that was awesome. Like you totally kicked butt. Like be proud of yourself. It's, I don't know what it is. It just feels so good to acknowledge those things and not, because I think a lot of times it's easy to get, stuck in all the ruminate over the things that you didn't do well, and where you missed the mark all the time. And that can take up a lot of mental energy. But I think for me, it's like been a total game changer as well, by allowing myself to, just think about the things that I have done well and ruminate on that for a little bit.
You touch, I kind of want to go another way with that. Another way to think about that is like, think of whatever craft you're in, think of the top dog in that craft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a motivational speaker, life coach, whatever, or a athletic coach, the ones that are coaching the pros or like the Tony Robbins of motivational speaking,
right.
He's touching and reaching thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in that same vein, say you only touch and reach and can mentor to 10 people. How are you, like, people might put that on a scale, right? And just say, well, you're not near as valuable or important as Tony. But apparently his message wasn't working for those 10 people or wasn't reaching them. There was a barrier there. So to those 10 people, you are exponentially more valuable to Tony. So I don't think it's weighted on like a numbers game. Like, you did your job and you reached these people and you were everything to those 10 people.
Exactly.
You be you to the people that you need to be and reach to. Like, because if you get wrapped up in that negative self-talk and then take yourself out of the game because you're not the Tony Robbins or you're not the big pro coach or whatever, like those people don't get reached.
Exactly.
Those people don't get mentored. And so then you're doing a disservice to them and a disservice to you because that is your gifting and talent.
Yeah.
And that, so
that's what you were called to do. Yeah.
Those numbers of 10s will grow because you're working on you and you're doing the work and you're loving yourself and loving others. And so I think.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I had that
great
explained
reminder.
to me and that just blew me away because it's just like, don't do it for the numbers, do it for the people.
Yes. So huge. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good thought. I like that.
Well, one thing, Go
ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say just kind of one thing I was going to leave everybody with is just even something that's really helped me is like, when I'm bombarded with doubts and fears, that's when I have to remind myself, like, I need to take a stand for myself, and just figure out like what it is I need to do for myself. For me, sometimes it's prayer or some of these different techniques that we've talked about. And so I think that's just, I don't know, just something I felt led to kind of leave folks with as well.
I did want to just like real quick, we've talked about negative, we talked about positive, but it's just like, how do you transition?
Mm-hmm. Great point.
Just some ways to get there. One, I think this needs to be said first. Like, if it is something that you feel is pretty deep rooted and pretty negative and you have any like deep ideations of things, like get professional help. And if it doesn't seem like on competition day or big speech day, like then I start to panic a little bit. I think that's normal and we can work through some of this. But if it's just every day, I'm the worst person, I don't deserve this. I think you still should work with a coach or a professional, and really get some of these techniques dialed and figure some things out. But just for the average person who's just has those negative self-talk loops, some things like negative thought counting is really helpful. Like, so one, there's just like, if you can go back through the big moment that we're talking about, anything, if it's like a performance, I know on the sports side is really helpful if you can have video of it. Right. That really helps remember like, oh yeah. So to count them And you might be kind of like shocked at how many times that you actually had that negative self-talk. Other thing is to recall good and bad performances and kind of like recall the thought processes during both and compare on paper.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so you can kind of go back and just say, oh man, I really like the way I was talking to myself there. And look, I did great. And
Right,
then like,
what was that
man,
impact?
I was really talking bad about myself and talking down and feeling bad. And look, it shows.
Yes.
And then another one is like just how to program positive thoughts. You need to have them programmed. You need to have those thoughts like, when the negative ones come in, you need to have that replacement. You need to have
you just shoot off with the.
You need to have the quick keywords.
Yeah.
To help. There's a lot of things. There's like our environment influences our thought patterns, and then like the previous one. So this isn't going to be just like I want to think positively. It's just going to happen naturally. It doesn't just happen. Like you have to program this in.
I like that. You make me think like even writing it down, like, okay, if this is my automatic negative thought, then right next to it, this is what I'm going to say to combat it when it comes to my mind. So it's like you're already prepared, like you're prepared for the battle. Like
even before that, like I know that before the thought even comes up, I know this event triggers this thought. So I know that like coming into an event, I'm already on those positive keywords. I'm already saying, you got this. You're calm. You're confident. You're talented. You're a vital member of the team. Like I put this stuff in my practice, or it just that way you're already thinking on the things that you want to think. Yeah, that negative thought might try to come in, and that's when we just like let it float on through. Keep that negative or that positive thought pumping in.
Right?
Like you have that performance plan, that positive performance plan already lined out. This is what I do. This is the routine I go through. This is how I think. These are the things I say to myself. This is how I isolate negative people because I don't need that. I don't want that.
Exactly. No, that's a good point. I was going to ask you too, as we were kind of talking, it made me think about, some of that work like Amy Cuddy's done on like your body posture, like when you're saying like things and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, or have you ever tried like anything like that? Like if you're saying like, I don't know, whatever, I'm calm and confident, like you're sitting up tall and like your like you're just, your whole being is different. Like, have you noticed for any of your athletes how that's changed?
That isn't something I've really necessarily worked on with my athletes, but that is actually a good idea. I think that we'll probably start implementing some of that. I've done it, I think more just through like, when it's being introduced and like, hey, try this. Like, yeah, I do feel
good. Yeah.
Feel strong and powerful and,
right.
confident.
Yes.
Yeah, it is really neat. Like those power poses and just get big, drop the shoulders, open your chest up, like.
Yeah, because you can say the same thing, like slumped over and just with no like.
I always think of, for me, like when I was coming after from my injury from getting hit by the car and everything. For some reason, the image of a lion was like so powerful for me. But like that, when you're saying like the positive postures, like I always think of a bear, like standing up, like you see the bear just trolling through the woods, but when they, roar up and roar, it's like, okay.
I mean, business. Yeah.
That's a big, powerful, confident animal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that's cool.
Yeah. And it makes me think like even there's been like some speakers I've gone to like their engagements and watched, and it's like they exude total confidence, like in their posture when they walk out on the stage. It's you're just like, whoa. And it's so crazy because I went to like this women's event, last year, and the way the speaker was, like, I swear, like the next couple of days at work, I was walking all high. Like I just, I felt like I was 10 feet taller, maybe 10 inches taller, but whatever.
Well, no, that's so huge.
But yeah, and it just kind of showed me that like those people that you were around has like a huge impact on you, and it was immersed in it for like 3 days and heard her talk every single day. And it was like, I totally was walking different. And I just totally forgot about that. But I'm like, I need to get that little walk back on.
Yeah.
It felt good. It really did. It was so crazy how much it changed like my outlook on the day. I mean, I'm just like really? Something that tiny? But it did.
That's really cool. So we want to issue this challenge out to everyone. I'm kind of just like spitballing this, free flowing.
Yeah,
but
let's hear
like,
it.
Let's do that. Let's come up with a very purposeful way that we're going to introduce positive self-talk into our life this week. Every day you need to do something that's purposeful within positive self-talk. If it's that power posture, if it's coming up with those positive keywords, being present, not worrying about, how my performance is tied to self-worth, so that'd be cool. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Oh, gosh, me
please
too.
Let us know, are you dealing with negative self-talk? What did you do to combat that? How did you implement positive self-talk?
Yes.
In that place. And then another thing that Anina and I are challenging each other to, completely off the topic of
oh gosh, yes. I was like, what?
Is,
yep, I remember.
We're looking at moving. We're staying still local area, but we're trying to find a house. So one of the things that we're challenging ourselves with is to get rid of something every day for 30 days, whether it's trash, recycle, donate or sell. Both of us have to come up with an item every day. So that's 60 items between the two of us. And that's a lot. That's
going to be a lot. We're going to have
cool.
like nothing left. My pillows are gone.
Okay. Yeah. So, what's your challenge? Let us know.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So with that, I think that wraps it up.
That wraps it up today.
Thank you everyone for all the positive feedback that we get.
It's been awesome.
We love hearing from everyone. Just running into people or on social, so please reach out.
Yes.
Like, share, subscribe if you're not already. And with that, I guess we'll just see you in the next one.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.